comment before. Yeah, okay. So today we hope to cover the bits that we left out in the previous webinar series, the part 1 series, so which involves user input, control statements. Yeah, so let me jump into my code editor. And before I start out, I've received a number of guys who want to join us, and maybe somebody will clarify at the end of the session. We are going to be meeting physically, hopefully, because guys have resumed school. So no worries. Whenever we'll be having a session, we'll communicate to you people. Yeah. So in the last webinar series, the part 1 series, we were to commence on the user input in Python. So basically, the user input in Python is, if you're familiar with other programming languages, maybe for instance you want to print out a statement, maybe saying, maybe to prompt a user to enter something, maybe what is your age. So the user will enter in his age. So this is kind of the same thing. You want to prompt a user to enter some figure or some data that you want to be passed in to run into a program to perform some certain task. So basically we are going to have we are going to print out the statement so that the user can be prompted. So what is your favorite music genre? So in this case, we'll have a variable fav music genre, and then input. We have this input method. So this input method will take in the whatever that has been passed in, whatever the user will input. So let's try and test it out. So what is your favorite genre? Music genre. So let's say pop music. So it has received the fav music genre has been initialized to the pop music because that's our favorite music genre. So I'd like us to print our favorite music genre. So let's print out our favorite music genre. So let's give it a try. So once again, let's say pop music. So it will say your favorite music genre is pop music. So to give it some little bit of space in between, okay, we could also do this. So that we can have some spacing in between. Yeah, so what is your favorite music genre? So we could say R&Bs. Also R&Bs are such a vibe. So your favorite music genre is R&Bs. So basically that's the user input in Python. So let's hop on to the control statements in Python. So control statements in Python pretty much revolves around the if statement, the if else. Yeah, so we could start by initializing a boolean and setting it to true. So we have condition, set it to true. Then we could have our control statement here. So if the condition is true, you print the condition was true. So if you're familiar with the if else statement, this is pretty much what you're talking about. This is what you're talking about in Python, control statements. So let's run the Python file in terminal. So okay, sorry. So the condition was true. Don't worry about the user input. Okay, it's because let me just comment it out so that you don't have to keep on inputting it. Yeah, so basically that's the control statements, but we could test it out on another level, whereby we could say we have, so this is a tuple. We're going to talk about data structures briefly. So this is the grades. So this should be okay. Let's just say grade. So this is okay. Tuples are like list, but now they are immutable. You can't change them. Once you have initialized these values, they'll remain constant. So I like to have A, B, C, D, E as the grades that I want to issue to students. So this will be constant. They won't change. Plus, you can't append, you can't add any other thing. So yeah, this is a tuple, because if you could even take a look, so you see it's a tuple. So we have our control statement here. Over here I had commented it out. So we are saying if the grade is equivalent to an A, print excellent. Else if grade is equivalent to B, print very good. L if grade is equivalent to C, fair. So let's have like something like you print some statement. What is your grade? What is the student's grade? Oh, sorry. What's your grade? I know it's bringing up some issue. You have to pass in the apostrophes in a specific manner, but we'll talk about that. So what is your grade? Then you have, let's say, we'll also have say, okay, I wanted us to test it, to give it a try. So let's just say is equals to grade is equals to input. Yeah. So let's give it a try. So you're being told the fave music is not defined. Oh, sorry, I forgot to comment this out. So let's run the Python file in the terminal once again. So what is your grade? So let's say our grade is an A. So it will tell you, it will print out excellent. So basically this is also a control statement. So so in this case we have the elif. The elif is just like else if. It's like a shortened version. So if grade is equal to, if the grade is A, print excellent. Else if, so it's just like else if, but it's elif. Yeah, so these are control structures in Python. So let's hop on to data structures in Python. So in Python we have quite a number of data structures. So let's start out with the lists. So lists in Python, lists are an essential Python data structure. So list is similar to an array, like it's just a list of items. So to have lists in Python, we have we have items. So we have items in brackets separated by commas. So in this case we have music genre, we have pop, R&Bs, and hip hop. So similarly, if you want to get the item whose index is 0, we could use this music genre, we pass in brackets and 0, because I said that in any case in the list or in arrays, the first item in this list has the index 0. So when you want to get it, you have to pass in the index of 0. Similar case to if you want to get R&Bs, because it's the second item in the list, so we'll use 1. Yeah, so you can also use the index method to like get an item or an element at index 0, for instance, which is pop. And so once again I said, so basically a number of things, even the data types in Python, data structures are objects because they have methods. So in this case, in getting the index is also a method. So we can also extract. You remember when we tried to do slicing? So this is kind of slicing, but we want to extract some bits in the list. So in this case we want to extract the items from index 0 till to index 2. But now in this case we said we are not going to include this the item with the index 2. So let's give it a try and see what I'm talking about. So I think, okay, let's just say no problem. Okay, it's saying value 0 is not, sorry, music genre.index. Okay, value 0 is not in list. Okay, let's give it a try. Let me first highlight this so that we don't have to keep to input. Yeah, so you can see we extracted pop and R&Bs because you say we want to extract apart from this list. This list contains pop, R&Bs, and hip hop. So pop is like our first element in the array, and R&Bs is the second item in the list, and the third is the hip hop. So you can extract it in that manner. So you can add items. So these are the methods that apply to the list. You can append, you can extend. So basically appending is adding something to the list. So in this case we are going to append country music to our music genre list. So then we will, after that, we want to print out our music genre. So let's give it a try and see. So you see now country music, from the terminal you can see country music is added. So append is like adding an item to the list. So if you want to add an item, you use the append method. So extend method is basically is just the same as the append method. So if you want to remove an item using the remove method, so if you want to remove an item, you use the remove method. So maybe we are not an old soul, let's remove country music from our music genre list. So I think so we could print it now. We could print it now after. So let's run the Python file. So you see right now we don't have the country music. Yes, we had appended it, but now we removed it from the list. So these are the methods that apply to the list. So I'd like us to, and also we have sort. So sort will basically rearrange the items based on their first letter. So it will arrange them from A to Z in alphabetical order. So yeah, that's the sort method in the list. So we have list comprehensions. So list comprehensions are a way to create lists in a very concise manner. So in this case we have numbers. So this is just the normal list, but now we want to, perhaps this is a way of looping through these numbers and performing some tasks. So you want to like modify the items in this list. You want to get the square of the number in the list. So you could do this. So this is list comprehension. So you want to create a list in a very concise way. So numbers power 2. So you'll say n raised to, so this is the exponentiation arithmetic operation we talked about above. So you'll say now n raised to power 2 for n in numbers. So it will loop through the numbers in this list, in the numbers list, and it will get, you'll get, now if we print out the numbers, the number power 2, you'll see the initial numbers list will be, now each item in the list will be raised to power 2. So let's take a look at it. So you see we have 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. So initially we had 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is list comprehensions in Python. So we have tuples. So tuples are like lists, but they are ordered and they are immutable. You can't change them. Maybe you want to have constants. So in this case I assume maybe having constants such as 3.142. and which is pi, and the speed of light. So these are the constants that we are familiar with. So you want to initialize, maybe you're creating a program that will perform some physics operations or some mathematical operations, and you have initialized your constants 3.142, which will be pi, and the speed of light, which is 3 times 10 raised to power 8. So yeah, so we talked about having constants in Python, and you saw you can use the enum module, or alternatively, I usually prefer using tuples, because tuples, it's an easier way, because they can't be changed. And if you notice one thing with the tuples, they don't have a number of methods, perhaps just checking the length and the index of the items. Yeah, so you can't manipulate items in a tuple. Yeah, so we could check the length of the constants. So okay. Let's just print out the length of the constants. So we expect the length to be 2. Yeah, so we have two items in the tuple. So next up, we are talking about the dictionaries. So dictionaries are very important Python data structures, because you see, basically you have the key value pair. So generally lists are going to allow you to create a collection of values. Dictionaries allow you to create a collection of key value pairs, and so basically this key can be any immutable value, like a string, a number, or a tuple. So let me. So here I have a dictionary. We have different leagues and the best teams so far. So we have the EPL, we have Man City. I know a number of guys will say this is a team that just rose up the other day, so this is not a team. But in the Bundesliga league, we have Bayern Munich. So in this case, I want to get the value for the key EPL. So let's print out the value for the EPL key. So if you take a look, we have Man City, so that's the value of the key EPL. You can equally do that for the key Bundesliga to get the value. So you could also change the nini. You can change the value. So maybe if you're a Man United diehard, you could have Man City replaced by Manchester United, because I know a number of you guys support Manchester United. So in this case, if you were to print if you want to get the value for the key EPL. Oh, sorry. So you can also run in your file via the terminal. So right now, our value for the key EPL is Manchester United. I know some of you are happy. So another way is using the get method, which has an option to add a default value. So you can say best teams.get EPL. So you'll still get the value for the key EPL. You could equally pop a key. So if you pop this key, it will subsequently delete the value for the key. So right now, if we were to print out like the dictionary best teams, we are not going to be able to see the EPL key and the value. So let's see. So you see right now we only have the Bundesliga key, and the value is Bayern Munich. So the pop item also retrieves and removes the last key value pair inserted into the dictionary. So we can have this pop item method to retrieve and remove the last key value pair inserted into the dictionary. So in this case, maybe we can start by appending. Let's append first, then you're going to pop. So I know a number of you guys are pretty much conversant with the Super League that was up in debates. So okay, dict object has no attribute append. Okay. Base themes dot append Super League. I don't know what's up. I think okay. But let's see. Let's try another method because I don't know why it's telling me that. Basically, dictionaries are supposed to have the append method, but maybe we can give it. Let's try it in another manner. We could use this. So we have base themes. We have Europa, and then we can pass in Juventus because it seems this time round Juventus is going to be playing in the Europa. Forgive me if I'm talking too much football. So let's try and print out best teams. So let's try and print out. So right now we have Bundesliga as the key and the value is Bayern München. We have Europa as the key and the value is Juventus. So yeah, so basically those are the methods that apply to dictionaries. We also have a number. We also have get a list with keys in a dictionary. Yeah, so you can basically you could equally also delete. You can remove key value pairs from a dictionary using the delete statement. Maybe you're saying that's a first that Juventus will be in the Europa, so let us remove it from the best teams uh, dictionary. So let's first we want to see it in action. So let's see. So let's run the file. So right now you see we don't have Juventus because we're hoping that Juventus won't get into the Europa. They'll at least, because that's not their standard. So you can equally copy a dictionary using the copy method. Yeah. So basically these are a number of methods that are applicable to dictionaries. So let's move on to the sets in Python. So sets basically work like tuples, but they are not ordered and they are mutable. So sets mimic the tuple, but now you can modify their value and they are not ordered. So remember in tuples are like constants. You can't change them, you can't modify, you can't append anything to the tuple, you can't basically the only methods that apply is getting the length and index, and only some few methods apply to it. But in sets work like tuples, but they are not ordered and they are mutable. So but I researched and realized they also have an immutable version called frozen set, which I'm not going to talk much about today. Let's just talk about sets. So here I have a set, programming languages. We have Python. So basically actually sets are declared in this manner. You have curly braces and you have a list. In this case we have strings, so we'll have them in quotes then separated by commas. Note also that in the dictionaries we have them in curly braces, but now we have colon to denote key value pairs separated by commas. So in this case we have a set of programming languages. You have Python, we have C++, we have C, we have C#, we have JavaScript. So let us have different sets. So in the first set I have C++, C#, and C. So basically I was trying to have a distinction between compiled languages and interpreted languages. So I realized, okay, so Python, Perl, MATLAB, these are interpreted languages, and compile and C, C++, C# are compiled languages. So we have a number of methods that apply to sets. We have the intersect, we have the union, we have the difference, and also you can check whether it's a superset or it's a subset. So in this case we have intersect. So set one and programming language. So we want to check like what's we want to check what's common. So maybe we can assign this to a value and print it out and see what it denotes. So let's say enter, then we say So maybe we could print out and see the value of the inter. So if you take a look at the intersect method, which is represented by the ampersand, so we have set1 and programming languages. So basically it checks on the common strings between these two sets. Because in programming language set we have Python, C++, C, C Sharp, and JavaScript, and in set1 we have C++, C Sharp, and C. So basically C Sharp, C++, C are like they are intersect. You see, you have two lists, you have two sets, you want to see which parameters are common, so you use the intersect, which is represented by the ampersand. So for the union, maybe you can say union, maybe let's just say union. I don't know whether that's a keyword. Let's wait and see. Okay, it's not a keyword. So for the union, it's represented by the, I don't know which sign you're supposed to, I don't know which, okay, let's just say this castrate thing. So set one, then you have this programming language. So maybe you can print it out and see. So let's say union. Yeah, so we have a JavaScript. So basically it will combine in all this is like a combination of all the items in this list. So the difference is like the difference between the sets. This is also to check the superset, if it's a superset, if set one is like a superset of, if it's like, yeah, it's a subset or a superset. So in this case, greater than means it's a superset of programming languages. So we have functions in Python. So in Python, you can have a function, and functions basically allow us to decompose a program into manageable parts. You have, maybe you want this function to add in numbers, you want this to multiply. So to have functions in Python, you could generalize them like this. So maybe you want a function to print out hello. So yeah, so in this case, I could say we have two functions. I have hello function to print out hello, and hello one to print out hello with the name. So I've passed in the name Python instance. So okay, let's see. It's kind of telling me that the variable is undefined. So let's just say Python instance. Let's see. Okay, let's just see first. It's not defined. But now we have to declare it to something. So Python instance. Okay, so now let's run it and see. So hello pivot, yeah, so basically that's what it will print out. Yeah, so those are functions for you, and this function you pass in an argument name. In this case you don't pass in any argument. So in this case name is a parameter, and when you pass in Pythonista, this is an argument. So maybe you want to pass in some data to perform something within your function, so you'll pass in an argument into that. Yeah, same case to that, you can pass in more than one argument, name, age. Yeah, so objects in Python. So what I was trying to tell you is that basically the data types and a number of classes, they are all objects because they have methods. So integer, string, floats are objects. So objects have attributes and methods. So let's say in this case we have total. So total is our integer. So we could check whether you could check the real part of the number total. We are just assuming that maybe it's a complex number. So in this case, you want to see the real bit of the total integer, and we could also check in the bit length. So basically, that's what I have been talking about. So maybe we can move on to loops in Python. So in loops in Python, we have while loops and we have for loops. So let's first start by having a variable count. So in this case, we initialize count to 0. So while the count is less than 10, we are going to keep on printing the condition is true, and we are going to add on the count. So if when the count is going to be equal to 10 or greater than 10, it will print out after the loop. So let's take a look at that. So you see it has printed the condition is true for from 0 to 10 to 9. That's 10 times. Then it printed out the after the loop. So basically that's loops in Python. Then we have items. So in this case we have this is a list of items. So we want to look through the items in the list. So we say for item in items, print items. So it will just basically print the items. So let's see, that's just generally easy if you're familiar with the number of this. So you see 1 2 3 4, yeah, so it has printed out that. We could also give in a range. Maybe you want 1 to 4, you can give in a range. You can also iterate using this. So let's see. So 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. So you give in a range, like you want it to loop from the first to the third, so it won't include the fourth item in the list, because you see it starts from 1 2 3, it doesn't include. So this is a range you give it. A range is the values in between, including the first value. So okay, in loops we also have break and continue. So to continue basically tells the program to stop the current iteration and execute the next one, but break stops the loop altogether. So let's get pragmatic on that. Yeah, so in this case we have for item in items, if item is equivalent to 2, continue. So it won't print out the second item, it will move on to the third item, and in this case it will break out, and it will have only printed only one item. So let's confirm it from the terminal. So in this case here, you can see, as you can see, I don't know how I'll distinguish that, but as you can see in this case, it printed 1 3 and 4. Take a look at the last 4 digits, 1 3 4 1. So this 1 3 4 corresponds to the items printed by the first for loop. So you see in this case, if item is equals to 2, it will continue, so it won't execute the print item. And in the case of break, since it will reach a point where the item is equal to 2, and it will stop looping, so it will only have printed the one one item. So basically that's for loop for you, and you're going to implement again. I don't know whether time will allow using, and we'll see how, because I thought maybe the time won't be sufficient. That's why I went ahead and prepared the game, but I'll explain how it works. I wanted us to build it as we see how it comes along. So we also have object-oriented programming in Python. This is a very vital thing in Python, because when you hop onto the field of web development, even AI, you must be conversant with classes, because basically modules are mostly composed of classes. So object-oriented programming allows you to decompose a problem into a number of units called objects, and then build the data and functions around these objects. So basically, I don't know whether you have heard of the principle dry, don't repeat yourself. Like basically, it's similar to functions. You have a class that maybe has this and these attributes. You could have another class inherit from this. Yeah, so basically, object-oriented in Python revolves around inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, encapsulation. So I know those terms are not, I don't know whether they are pretty familiar with everyone, but if you are coming from languages like C++ and you've worked with object-oriented programming, it must be familiar. And also, if you're familiar with Java, then this must be at home for you, because I know you understand pretty much access modifiers. We have the private, the public classes here. So basically, it's an implementation of object-oriented programming in Python. So we were saying that we're decomposing a problem into a number of units called objects, and then build the data and function around these objects. So these functions are like methods, instance methods. So an object is an instance of a class. So we have here a class. we have a class we have a class Pythonista. So we have a function in here. So in this function we have the level function, we pass in self. And one thing you should know that if you define a function, you basically have to pass self as an instance of the class. So we want to print amateur. So then in this case, let me create an instance of the class using this syntax. So if you're pretty familiar with Python, you'll be familiar with this name, Guido von Rossum, because he's the one behind Python. So we have created an instance of the class Pythonista. So Guido von Rossum Pythonista. Then in that case, also we have a special type of method, the init constructor. So basically this constructor, maybe you have declared, you see, you're declaring your class. I don't know whether this information is overwhelming, because object oriented is like a topic on its own. Maybe perhaps when we are done with the session, I'll share with you some nice explanation, elaboration on object oriented programming, because if I'm to tackle everything revolving around object oriented programming, it will take much, because I'll have to delve deeper into encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. I try to simplify, but maybe if you can follow along from this. So in this case, we have a method init constructor. This is a danda method. So it is used to initialize one or more properties. So in this case, you have this class Pythonista. We have this method, the init constructor. You pass in self. You have to pass in self as an instance of the class. Then you pass in some arguments, name, then age. So you set self.name to the name passed in, and similar to age. So this is just a way of initializing some properties, some instance of the class. Yeah, basically I'll make sure I send in those details so that you can follow along the same. But so in this case, you have this Pythonista class. So in this case, I'm creating an instance of the class person1 Pythonista. So I pass in John and 16 as the age. So if I want to print person1.name, yeah, so let me just uncomment out this so you can see. But I don't know whether this information is overwhelming, but yeah, I know it's quite shallow. I didn't delve deeper into object oriented programming, but I'll share much on the same. So if you take a look at this, I had set the level to novice, because basically we are not yet gurus. We have not done things revolving around building bots, venturing much into AI. We are past the beginner, so let's set it to a novice. So in this case here, we have created an instance of the class, passed in John and age. So print out person1.name. This is how you can access these instant attributes. Yeah, basically that's it. And also you can inherit. Let me not talk much about it. So in this case, you also have modules in Python. So every Python file is a module, including this it's a module. Maybe when I move on to the next, I could do an import. I could import some of the classes, or maybe some of the functions from this file into the other. Maybe I want to perform some functionality. So yeah, that's basically Python files are module, and you can import a module from another. So in this case, maybe I want to import the class Pythonista. So I could come into this. Let me use this for instance. So I could say import Pythonista so you'll start out by saying from, maybe let's say pivot club, import because we are in the same directory, so we want to import the class Pythonista. So basically this is how you are going to perform, this is how you are going to import modules. So we have this class Pythonista, and we want to import it maybe to here, we want to use it. So that's how you are going to perform it. There are a number of ways of importing modules, but that's the basic way of importing modules. So let's also talk about the Python standard library. So pretty much a number of programming languages have their standard library, including C++. So these are a number of modules you can find in the Python standard library. To get a full list, you can check out this website. So we have math for math utilities, we have array for regular expression, we have JSON to work with JSON, datetime, SQLite to use SQLite, OS for operating system, yeah, and they're quite a number. When you delve deeper into Python, you'll be pretty much using some of these modules. So I also wanted to talk about debugging in Python, how to debug your code to get bugs. I know debugging is quite a hectic thing. You could end up stalling a project because of errors, and who doesn't? Who likes bugs? Nobody likes bugs in his program. So to debug, you can use the breakpoint. So adding a breakpoint into your code will help you in debugging. So I think I talked about the variable scope and global variable and the global variables and local variables. So this is basically when you declare a variable in the function, it's a local variable. When you declare it in the program, it's a global variable. So recursion, we also have recursion in Python. Basically, recursion is where a function calls itself. So in this case here, we have a factorial function. We want to get the factorial of a number. So if n is equals to 1, return 1, else if return n multiplied by factorial n minus 1. So this is calling this function. So that's basically recursion. We also have decorators in Python. Yeah, how to install third-party packages. Decorators are pretty much a way to change and enhance. So I don't know how I'll expound on this, but a decorator is just a function that takes a function as a parameter. Yeah, I know I'm rushing through this. It's because of time. I'm seeing time is not on my side. But these are things that when you start out in Python, they'll not be familiar. But as time goes by, you're going to understand pretty much well. Because maybe if you're working on a site using Django, you want to limit the number of guys who are supposed to have to visit to maybe visit this site. You use decorators. Yeah, so basically decorators are quite helpful in Python. So we also want to talk about how to install third-party packages in Python. Maybe you want to install a certain module from the library, so you're supposed to use the Python. So I talked about the Python package index. It stores a number of modules. So you to install, you will just use pip. Yeah, so you just say pip. Maybe for instance, you want to install Django, or you want to install maybe a library like some library we have talked about. Maybe you want to install the JSON library, so you can just say pip install maybe request module, which I pretty much work with it. Yeah, so that's how to install packages from the Python package index. So we also have the Python virtual environment. So in this case, maybe I don't know whether for those who have worked with Python are familiar with the virtual environment. Maybe you see you have a project whose setup requires a version of a package, and this other project requires another version. So virtual environments helps us to manage this, because you don't want it to clash. Like you have to pretty much reinstall and install. So to have a Python virtual environment, you'll just type in this to your terminal: Python, then -m, then env. But first you have to pip install the venv wrapper, the venv wrapper, so that now you are able to install a virtual environment. Yeah, so basically those are a number of things I wanted to cover. So allow me to take you through the game, because I see time is quite not. So basically, we were to create this guessing game. I think we can just, I don't know whether we can, within the 7 minutes, we could build it up from scratch, because basically this is how you have a secret word, then you have a guess, you have the guess count, then you have the guess limit. Then in this case, the secret word is pivot, then this is the guess. So right now it's initialized to an empty string. Then we have the guess count. So I want to limit the number of guesses someone can make. Then the guess limit, I set it to 3, and out of guesses, I set it to false. You'll see these are just the parameters, the variables that I have declared. So while guess is not equal to the secret word, so the guess that you're making, if it's not equal to the secret word, continue looping, and also check if if the out of guesses is true, then stop looping. So these conditions have to be certified. I talked about the logical and. So in the logical and, you have to make sure that this condition and this condition are satisfied so that it can continue to loop. So if guess count is less than guess limit, so in this case I set the guess limit to 3. So this is the input. We talked about the user input in Python. So you are going to be inputting this. So enter guess. So you will be inputting the guess. Now once somebody makes a guess, he enters a guess, the count will increase. Then else, if the guess is greater than the guess limit, so set the out of guess to true. And if out of guess is true, then we print out of guesses, you lose, else print you win. So let's give it a try. So let's see. So let me enter a guess. Let me assume that I didn't see the guess. Okay, let me just assume I don't know the guess. Let's have a name of I don't know. Okay, let's say Python. So in this case, you see it will tell you to enter another guess because the guess is not equal to the secret one. So let's think of C++. Perhaps this guy loves programming. What else? Let's think of C. So you are told out of guesses you lose. So basically that's just the guessing game that I wanted to show you. I also was trying to do some game for, because you see, for the problem with having this guessing game number is that one cannot decipher the secret word. But for Nini, for numbers it's quite easy, because I tell you the number is in between 1 and 10. You can pretty much tell it. For those who are familiar with algorithms, some of the algorithms will tell you that it's easier to get a number that's being guessed. So in this case I imported random. This is a module. I imported it. Then you have this hidden. So for those who have, I don't know if you're familiar with the random generator. For those who are coming from languages like C or C++, are familiar with the srand. It's used to just generate a random number from a given range. So this is equally applicable to Python also. So after importing the random module, we'll apply it. So hidden is equals to random.rand range. The range is between 1 to 10. So I wanted to print out to C, but let's not print out. Okay, let's just print it out. So we have the guess count to 0, we have the guess limit to 3, and out of count to false. So okay, I was trying to figure out a way of having like having an integer set to empty, but I didn't decipher the way. So that's why I have in here I prompted the user to enter their guess. So while the guess is not equal to hidden and and out of count is still false, and out of count is true, it will stop looping. So we have guess count is less than guess limit. So the guess count, if it's greater than 3, it won't execute this condition. So you'll have this. Yeah, so let's give it a try. So assuming we didn't see, so let's just say 5. Let's say again, let's just try again 6. So you're being told your guess is too high. So now we move down. Let's say 4. We're told your guess is too high. Let's go to 3. So completed, nailed it, completed game successfully. So basically this is just the game that I wanted to show you out, but because of time, we could have, I thought maybe time is going to hinder us. That's why I had it built out. I just built it out right now before the meeting started. So because of time, maybe I could take in some questions. Yeah, any question? Today I don't have a moderator, but any question is welcomed. Hey guys. Okay, so basically I'm seeing someone is asking what is Pivot Club. So Pivot Club is a club is a okay, it's an engineering club where we look to bridge the gap between academia and industry. So okay, I'll come back to that, the interpreter I'm using for Visual Studio. So pivot in the main purpose of the Pivot Club is to ensure that you have those skills, you get the skills and knowledge that will help you to link up, because you see whatever we are learning today. Okay, so I'm seeing there's a number of questions. Okay, I'll answer to that. So basically, we want to equip you with the skills, with the relevant skills that are going to help you bridge the gap between academia and industry by having pragmatic projects. So let's say, for instance, right now, we have something known as the Industry 4.0, which spans around artificial intelligence, IoT, machine learning. So we try to cover some of these emerging technologies so that when you go to the field, you'll be quite conversant with these topics so that you won't be left out. Maybe perhaps whatever curriculum you're using, the things we are studying, maybe they are not yet up to date, but now with the club, you can get up to date knowledge and skills. Yeah, so basically that's Pivot Club. So to my second question, I see, okay, which interpreter I'm using for Visual Studio. So, okay, basically, Python has a number of code editors. We have PyCharm, but in this case, the interpreter is just the, I don't know what he meant by the interpreter, but you see basically how Python compiles. Python compiles the source code. It will run it into the Python virtual machine. Yeah, so I'm just using VS Code. It's just the code editor, nothing much. I just have the basic setup. So, Felix is asking the difference between the while loop and the for loop. So, in the while loop, you have to, you see, let me just go back to the while loop. Allow me to go back to the while loop. Okay, so for the while loop, you see, in the case of the while loop, you have to have so whatever condition you want to check if it's true, you have to first declare it. You have the count, you set it to 0. So as long as this count, the value of the count is less than 10, it will execute whatever is in the block. So it will continue printing the condition is true. So basically, I don't know if you are pretty much familiar with the C++, where we say for maybe brackets I is equals to 0, where we initialize, then we have the loop guard. So in this case, count is equals to 0 is like our initialization. We are initializing this value, then this is our loop guard, then this is incrementation. So but in a for loop, we just make all this easier. We don't have to you just, in this case, you declare the items. You don't have to set it to, maybe, okay, let's have a replica of this. So for the for, in this case, if you take a look, we just looping through items, an item in the items list. We So for the for loop, it basically combines in the initialization, the loop guard, and the incrementation. Yeah, so that's the difference. For the while, you have to kind of have the initialization made first, then you come to the loop guard, then you come into the incrementation bit. So that's the difference between the while and the for loop. But basically, the while loop is mostly used, but for loop is mostly in Python is used to iterate through things, if I'm not wrong. Because if you take a look at this, we are using the while loop because we initialize a value, the guess, then if it's not equal to the secret word, so this is like our loop guard. This is the condition, is our loop guard, then we increment the value. So that's the difference. The for loop, you basically, it's like a 3 in 1, while the while loop is, they are all, the initialization, the loop guard, and the incrementation are all kind of split up. So yeah, so I see, okay, I see Sarah is saying thanks. I'll do just that. Yeah, so basically that's that. Let me show in my okay, let me stop presenting. So Maxwell, you had unmuted yourself. Maybe you have a question.
Okay, I have three questions, yeah? So when you are a Pythonista, right?
Yeah,
You are a Pythonista.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Basic. I started working with Python from last year December. Let me just say I'm a novice Pythonista because I've not built it a lot. Yeah, but yeah, I'm a Pythonista. Let's say that.
Okay, so what is the best part in Python that, yeah, according to what is the best part in Python?
So okay, so basically, you see, I started out in web development and realized that I needed to have something that is dynamic. So meaning that I have to have a database and all the backend things. And I did my research and saw that using Python is quite easy because I also wanted to venture into the field of machine learning and artificial intelligence because it kind of fascinates me. So that's why I settled on Python. I've actually created some number of models, like machine learning models, and I still have fun working with them. Yeah, so what fascinates and resonates with me in Python is it's easy to use and the community around it, the support, like the ecosystem is just quite good. Yeah.
Okay, and what would you recommend to someone who's very new to Python? Yeah, like how do they learn, or yeah, how do they learn? Yeah.
Okay, so what I would like to recommend, so in the webinar series, I've tackled the basics. You can go through I'll have the code in GitHub, but so that you can internalize these things, you have to get practical. So there are a number of applications of Python. You can start off with web developing. If you are familiar with web developing, you can start out in a language like Django. You learn other things along the way. It will equally also build your reliability and automation. Yeah. So basically just get pragmatic. Like for me, let me just say all these projects that I'm working on, I would like someone to build it along the way as I was doing it. Okay, so when my friends, I'm not going to use any names, right? But as much as there is dynamic, there is referencing and learning things, learn how to set up your infrastructure, and a number of other things that you need to do. Python is quite easy and it's accessible to everyone. So that's basically what I would recommend.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, Tony, maybe you have something.
Okay, me, it's not really a question, but I think we are about to wind up, Cindy.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was an issue.
Mm-hmm.
The- I attended the meeting somehow late, and I have learned that there are some guys who are interested in joining Pivot Club. That is right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Pivot is basically a student-based club at KU, and we have an ecosystem. It's a club that has been there for a while now. There are alumni attached to our club, so it's a nice place to be. So due to time, I won't get into a lot of details about it, but for the guys who want to join the club, if you look at the chats section, I have I have attached my phone number there. I would like anyone who is interested to join, you can WhatsApp me and I will give you the directions on what to do in order to join the club. So my number is 0726937955. I hope you can see from the chats. So you just have to copy it and hit me on WhatsApp. Oh, my name is Tony Mayo, and I'm the club's vice chairman. So I hope you guys are interested, and I hope I will get a number of you guys requesting to join. So once more, thank you for joining the webinar session, and thank you, Ronnie. That has been an awesome and insightful series on Python, and we hope to do more. So thanks.
Yeah,
That's it for now.
yeah, welcome, Tony. Yeah, so we also okay. So basically, the club also we have a number of guys who are pretty much familiar with AI, guys who have worked with OpenCV. So basically, this was like a building block so that now we can continue. We can have machine learning coming later on. Then you can have AI, you can do some awesome stuff with OpenCV. Like we can see the practical bits so that now you get to internalize some of these things. But I think first we must make sure we are pretty much familiar with object-oriented programming. That's one thing that now I'll make sure that I'll send in the detail, the details about that so that when we move on to ML and I hope we'll have guys like Shadrach because I saw Shadrach is familiar with OpenCV. So yeah, hope for the best. So let's just wind up on that unless we have a parting shot. So yeah, yeah, my parting shot is that I want to thank you all for attending the part one and the part two series. Man, be blessed, man. It's a motivation as much as I'm not yet there, like I'm still growing up. So, man, thank you. I'll really treasure you guys for attending this. I've seen a number of guys who have attended it. So, man, thank you so much. You can also follow me on my Twitter account at Ronnie Leon, Ronnie underscore Leon underscore, or LinkedIn at Ronnie Leon. Yeah, so basically that's it all. So it's a wrap. Man, thank you all. So you can leave the meeting at your own peril, at your own will.